You're listening to the SojuTalk Nation podcast, episode 52. On today's episode, Alice joins the show to discuss September in SojuTalk music. So sit back and chill with friends. You're listening to the after show with the SojuTalk Nation. Welcome to the SojuTalk Nation podcast, a chill discussion on this month in the SojuTalk Nation. We're recording on Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. I'm your host, Chris B, and joining me this month, the intellectually high-achieving jet setter, well-studied in academics and literature, and a myriad of wonderful storytelling things. Someone who creates amazing fan theories and fan understandings of such groups as Red Velvet. The one and only Alice joins the show. Welcome to the show, Alice.
Thank you, Crispy. That's way kinder than just calling me an obsessive nerd, which I also am. But I'll take your kind words. Thank you.
I would say dedicated rather than obsessive. I would say well-focused and attention to detail are some of the accolades that I would like to accolades that I'd like to give you. But maybe you're an acolyte of something. I don't know. Well, Alice, thank you so much for joining this month. It's going to be you and me, and we're going to hit up all the songs that were released in September, at least as far as the ones covered on SojuTalk, and then some that weren't. So things kind of outside of the main show. So September was an interesting month. The crew had a couple of weeks off a little bit before that, and they caught up on a lot of music. So some things were jumbled up, some things were pushed forward, pushed back. So you know what? We decided we're going to go through our top 3 songs from 3 to 1, and it's going to be a mix. It's going to be a mix of songs that were covered on the main show, and then some things that kind of stood out to us that may have been covered on the main show, but for many reasons we're kind of left off the list this month. But we hope to give it some spotlight here. So this is the first time Alice is joining, and it's a one-on-one episode. So Alice, you are the guest of honor. You were going first. What is your number 3 song of September 2022?
All right. So for number 3, I'm going to start with a more recent song and one that was not covered on the main podcast. And it is by a young, recently debuted rapper and vocalist, I would say, and that is B.O. And this is a song featuring Zico. It's Complex. It's the title track from B.O.'s new mini album. And I don't know him super well. I know he was on Show Me the Money maybe a couple of seasons. But last year I stumbled onto Counting Stars, which was his song featuring Benzino. And I loved it. I listened to it a whole lot. And then I kind of forgot about him. And then I stumbled into this mini album and the title track. It's a really fun and cute music video with a super cool concept. I know I shared the link with you to the album. And it seems to me like it's an album about going through a quarter life crisis. So it's like the challenges of finding yourself as an adult. And Complex itself is a song that I think is a little bit about struggling to achieve success, maybe feeling distant from your friends. It's a really terrific music video. So I don't know if you've seen it, if you want to talk about it a little bit more, what your impressions were.
Yeah, great choice. You sent me the link to the album last week, and I was like, oh, B.O., I know this guy. Counting Stars. Great song. Featured on a number of artists that I listen to, that I just popped in and out of throughout the year. He's definitely an artist that has gone on a playlist of like chill hip hop for me. So songs within K-pop that are very similar are the Treasure song from earlier this year, and the Unhypen song, Polaroid. So B-sides, but kind of in that same vein of hip hop, R&B, chill hip hop. With BO, Complex, Zico, amazing music video. So much fun. I would say I like the meta nature of the music video because it is kind of taking on high school movie tropes, finding love, stumbling on things, but also kind of indicative of like stumbling on parts of life, and then zooming out to Zico being the director of it, directing BO, but then almost like being his mentor, his guide to a lot of the ups and downs, trials and tribulations of life. And I think it's just a really cool way that it plays together, and there's a fun, playful lightness to everything that really complements the song. So I do like the song as well. And I do appreciate that you put me onto the song because I missed it. I missed it completely. So the entire album also is great, and it kind of flows with this. What are your kind of thoughts on this genre of hip hop, R&B, kind of chill hip hop starting to get a little bit more mainstream, or at least getting a little bit more attention, just because there are a lot of collaborating artists kind of going into this genre? I kind of love it. The one that I think might be like a song of the year candidate for me is J Park and IU with Ganadara. And I feel like that falls very much in line with this genre of music. So what are your overall thoughts of chill hip hop in 2022?
Well, I'm going to say more about this because chill hip hop is very much my genre, and collaborations to me are what make music very exciting. And I think that it's something that has been part of hip hop from the very beginning, is collaborations and kind of moving away from this model of like the solitary genius singer songwriter who does everything by themselves and it's their own unique special vision of themselves. So I like the sort of idea of exchange. I think you totally hit upon it with this song too, that, you know, Zico plays this role of being like a mentor or director. And it's this idea of maybe passing the torch to somebody who's a bit younger, giving them advice. Yeah, I love the tropes of the music video, this idea of like the, you know, going backstage or being on stage and then off stage, and how you navigate that. But yeah, I think that this has been the year of chill hip hop. And I know that, you know, there are people who like stuff that's like more hype, more high energy. But for me, this kind of like nonchalant melodic delivery is something that really just, it just lets you like settle into it. It doesn't feel like it's somebody who's posturing too much. You know, they're able to sort of sit back a little, and deliver insights in a way that have a little bit more credibility for me than some of the like really hype hip hop. And I definitely love, you know, hip hop's posturing and performative energy sometimes. But this kind of more relaxed approach is one that definitely is right up my alley.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just with age and the fact that I am like 90 years old. I just kind of want a softer touch with certain parts of my day as far as the type of music I listen to. I made a playlist titled 808s and IU. It is a reference play off of title to 808s and Heartbreak with Kanye West back in the day, guys, way back in the day. And it is all very similar music to BO and this song, right? So I made an entire playlist with this very similar vibe. And I absolutely love it as well. I echo everything you said about kind of the different form of connection that one can have with a more sincere, lighter touch. Definitely still hip hop music, definitely still very much a tactician with the way that he combines words, lyrics, and then delivers them. Zico is one of the OGs as well, so there's that nice back and forth between them. But again, it's not like the aggressive, over the top, in your face hip hop that I feel like was very popular at a certain point in the mid 2010s. But there's always those cycles of angst, right, where that type of hip hop is very popular. But right now, I feel like we're in a nice spot where it's like, yeah, we've got a lot of like modern artists, or at least artists coming back that are doing this sound, and can make a whole playlist and just feel a vibe for it. And yeah, I love it. Any closing thoughts on BO featuring Zico with Complex?
so. I mean, just to say that anybody who hasn't listened to it, give it a listen. Check out the full mini album. I think it's maybe 20 minutes. Really charming, very relatable lyrics to anyone who's sort of gone through those moments in life. And just really worth checking out. And I have to say, like, I'm going to be paying a lot of attention in the future to BO's work because this has really caught my attention.
Yeah, amazing work. We're in a good spot with as far as hip hop and R&B right now. So yeah, K hip hop and K R&B music, all good stuff. All right, I'm going to go with my number 3 track of the month. It is a newer song as well. And you know what? Sometimes I just want to go into a time machine of what 2015 was like. And I want kind of the weird sample packs. Maybe not weird, maybe the old sample packs, right? The ones that Warren, talked about on the main show yesterday. And I'm going with EXID with Fire. I was going through my old playlist on Spotify, and I actually have a playlist from 2017 I had not touched from EXID. And I was like, oh, I did listen to the music in the past. Yeah, shout out to Hani and the fan cam. Good job. Yes, I was one of the many people in 15, 16 that caught my attention. With this song, I think it's just nice to have him back. It doesn't feel like an anniversary song. It feels like, hey, like we're back and we're gonna do some music that's a little bit relevant, but also a little dated, for better or worse. And we're just gonna do our thing in a really professional, experienced way, and they all come across that way. I do love the vocal section of the song. And there's a little bit of a push and pull with the way the song is produced. So, yeah, I'll just start there. So Hyerin and Solji kill it definitely in the song, and that's kind of the pre-chorus part. The theming, the outfits, is very interesting. Definitely kimchi western. I think it plays up into the cheese of everything, but a very confusing set being set in the prison. So. Yeah, I don't really know if this was, well, no, I do know this was a song taken seriously, but at the same time, I think there's a little bit of cheese here that you're like, yeah, this is kind of fun. This is kind of a joke, meme type of situation. But for the most part, I think the girls look great. They look wonderful. And hopefully this means more music for them. We're just getting a year of like second gen folks coming back. And I'm just having the time of my life. Alice, what are your thoughts on EXID and Fire?
Well, I'm second gen wannabe. So it's like to my own dismay that I did not get into K-pop until 4 years ago. And I try to make up for it by listening to as many second gen groups as possible. I don't know EXID as well as I'd like. I would say that the song that has been on my playlists the most of theirs is DDD, which it's an incredible song. I love it. And I think there's a couple of approaches that groups can take when they come back like this. And one has been the sort of Big Bang approach where they make a song that's sort of sweeping and reflective. Or, one like Girls' Generation did where they just have a lot of Easter eggs and throwbacks for their fans. And I think those are both terrific approaches. I think that what EXID did is something that I almost like more, which is just saying, like, if this is what you like, if this is what you came to us for, we're just going to double down on that and give it to you hardcore. There's something really weird or unusual for me is I listened to the mini album before watching the music video, and I didn't know what the title track was when I listened to the mini album. And I'll say, when I was listening to the mini, I was really hoping that IDK would be the title track. But I sort of suspected it would be a Fire just based on, what a banger it is. And I was right. And I think that basically, in Fire, they keep talking about being like hot like Tabasco. And I would say they're hotter than Tabasco because Tabasco is not that hot. The song is approximately as hot as Tabasco. Their charisma and their performance levels it up. The pre-chorus is incredible. The chorus, like, I think some of the instrumentals don't quite hit for me. It doesn't, it's a little uneven, but they're so beautiful and charismatic and fierce. And this is something I've really seen in a lot of the second gen idols that are coming back is that they just bring this incredible maturity and confidence to their performances. So even if their material isn't necessarily as cutting edge as they might deserve, their performance really carries it through. And I would say that was my experience watching Fire.
Yeah, there's definitely a level of experience where it's very clear they've been doing this for 10 years, right? Yeah, they are my peer, I guess. Although I am far more not confident and not experienced and immature than they are in this music video. So I don't know where that puts me. But I do love the fact that they are very much highlighted in this music video. Lay, L-E. I came up during a time where there's not as many YouTube videos to explain everything with EXID. I didn't go back, guys. I'm so sorry. But she looks great. I do love the bedazzled cowboy hat. And Hani is just, she can step on me. That would be great. Thank you very much. Yeah, MVP to Hani. Any other thoughts? Oh, one quick thing. So we did get a run of songs using this very similar sample pack of kind of the Bollywood inspiration, perhaps even like Middle Eastern sound. What do you think about them using this here? And the fact that we got essentially 3 songs released very close together with a very similar sound between Lapalas and Blackpink with Pink Venom.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the instrumental I was referring to as Not Loving. Like at this point, if you're using it, I feel like you'd better be using it ironically, because it's really overplayed. It's not something that really resonates with me. I feel like it's kind of thrown in to add like an exotic flair, but I don't even know if it's that meaningful. I don't know. I guess I feel negatively towards it. What about you?
I think the way it's incorporated in a lot of songs is just a little too abrasive, but I don't know how to solve that because I feel like that sound in general is just really difficult to make subtle, right? The best application of it so far that I feel like was characterized almost in a Bollywood way, where it was recognized that way, right, is Luna with Paint the Town. That song has different I have mixed feelings about that song in general, but I feel like the incorporation of that Bollywood sound in that song was the most subtle and additive to the song, as opposed to the past songs we got in the past month where it's just like, oh, this is just a lot. It's like the main like meat of the song. It's like I need to like separate myself for a minute because I need a palate cleanser. Where I feel like in Paint the Town, it was very much a character within the song, and it worked well as far as the way it was used. With the EXID song, I like it, but man, it's a lot. It's a lot. All right, let's get into your number 2 track for September 2022. Alice, what do you got?
All right, so my number 2 track, another collaboration, and it is our boy Crush featuring our boy J-Hope, Rush Hour. I could say a whole lot about this. I'll just start by saying that it's such a amazing comeback for Crush. It's an amazing follow-up to what I think of as his COVID trilogy. So before he put out his mini album Her, where he was doing duets, and that was the album that came out basically at the same time he enlisted, he did these 3 songs that all, I feel like, touched upon COVID in different ways. And the first one actually came out before COVID was really a thing, and that was Digital Lover. And that was February of 2020. And then Mayday, and then Ohio. And there's a real progression in those. Like, I think with Digital Lover, it's this very depressing music video, very solitary, very isolated. It starts with these lines: I want to be left alone on a deserted island I've created. And I guess, you have to be careful what you wish for, because then we all got left alone on deserted islands. And in Mayday, he is alone and he's going stir crazy, and he conjures up out of a cauldron Red Velvet's Joy, which is an incredible moment. And then in Ohio, again, he's alone, and he references that he's been dancing till the morning on his own, like he's out of his mind. And in each of those music videos, he's pretty much alone on screen. But then he comes back and he does Rush Hour, and all of the frames are just exuberantly filled with people. And he references driving back from his practices through like UN Village and Itaewon, and he's like leaving the studio and he's surrounded by people, and it's like a whole street party. And J-Hope's there. And it's this like great sort of up-tempo funk-infused song. I feel like this has been the month of funk. And I really like Crush as a vocalist in R&B and ballads, but it's really nice to get this kind of sound from him. It reminds me of Ohio, which I think is my favorite sound of his COVID trilogy songs. So yeah, I mean, I've been listening to this so much since it came out.
Do you want to just finish the show by yourself? I have nothing to add to this, because that was an amazing and excellent and incredibly like deep and profound thought process of what Crush represents and just like his history prior to COVID, prior to the military. That's crazy that he went to the military, he's back, he did music, and we're still kind of in a pandemic. I don't understand time, but I loved everything you said about kind of the evolution of his story in a lot of ways, where you start by yourself, alone in isolation, and then what does that mean as far as how does it change you, your experiences throughout, and then a moment of clarity, and then taking time for yourself, whether that's doing a duty or perhaps even just taking a break from everything, right? Taking a vacation, perhaps, not the military's vacation, but adjacent to what you can do as a person, and not in his situation. But then coming back to that big party, and I love it too. I love the aesthetic. It's definitely a '90s. Being a '90s kid, it just evoked every single thing that I felt about that time period, while also feeling very modern in the way it was shot, the coloring. I had Jay on the show earlier was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. And then he went into a great detail about how the coloring was very symbolic of kind of the push and pull and the complementary fashion of J-Hope and Crush. And just between the way that you described Crush as far as the themes and motifs throughout, and now Jay with kind of the technical aspects about the way it's shot, I feel like I just went to SojuTalk University, and you two are the professors, and I am just a student here. Man, you guys are amazing. I do love the sound, the very Motown, very funky 90s inspiration. Yeah, I think it's just a great song to come back to. This was my number one song of the month, so you slipped away from me, but it's okay. I kind of anticipated that it was going to go in the top two. So no, I'm really looking forward to his album. Her was an amazing kind of duet album. I love every single artist on that album, specifically Lehigh, and just their relationship and how it expresses musically, the way that they kind of go back and forth, their sensibility, the way they sing, the way they see music is very clear. And my hope is that, Crush is known for ballads. Now he's done this very high energy funk song. Hey, Lehigh did one of those a year ago with Red Lipstick. Can we get something like that? Crush and Lehigh.
Wow.
Yeah, I got to manifest that one, because those two are my favorite pairing as far as musical savants, geniuses. Any parting thoughts for Crush and J-Hope?
Well, I think that you and Jay, as you noted, like you guys broke it down really brilliantly last week. So I don't really have a whole lot more to add about that. But yeah, I mean, I think Crush just really shines in collaborations. And I hope he keeps doing more stuff. I'm hoping that he does more stuff with Akmu's Chanhyuk, who I know is going to be debuting as a solo artist this month. And I would also just shout out his duet with Akmu Suhyun in the Akmu Collaborations album, Stupid Love Song, because it's one of the most beautiful, gorgeous, redemptive music videos I've seen. And that whole album, I think it was one of my top 5 albums of 2020. So Stupid Love Song. Yeah, I mean, Crush is just he's crushing it. Sorry, but he's terrific in everything. I couldn't be a bigger fangirl.
You know, I want to keep listening to new music, but now like mentally revisiting and having the sense of nostalgia for music from 2 years ago. That's kind of crazy. I just want to spend like a month listening to all those songs now and just kind of revisiting and re-experiencing it, because the way you describe it and the way that you're reminding me now of when those songs were released, I was just like, oh yeah, I loved everything back then. I should go back. But yes, Crush, a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new. Hopefully we get some new soon. And yeah, Crush is absolutely crushing it, like you said. All right, I'm going to my number 2 track of the month. I'm taking this from my replacements. I'm going with Adora with Magical Symphony. This one stuck up on me. I was really not paying attention to a lot of new music at the time. And then I didn't even know the song was being covered until the day of. And I was like, okay, well, I gotta like pause, watch the music video. Okay, I don't really have time to watch the music video. I'll just listen to it on Spotify. And I was like, what is this? Come on. And I was like, okay, this is fantastic. This is adorable. Little did I know, she also goes by Adorable Trap. I'm just like, oh, okay. And then I kind of looked her up, all the details that they explained on the show. Shout out to Warren. So she is a former producer at Big Hit, Hybe, and then now has made it on her own as a soloist with Aura Entertainment, I believe, the company. Still a pretty not up and coming, but like a young person, right? A relatively young person, mid-20s. I gotta say, like the fact that she's able to capture this concept of being a musical, right? And the fantasy and whimsy of moving through a space that matches and pairs with the song is incredible. I think Warren kind of soured on the music video a bit because he saw it like 20 times. I get it. You see something so often, you kind of, get a little bit fatigued. I could not get enough of it. For me, the things that I watch are just like TV shows sometimes. So I did get a sense of The Good Place. If you ever seen that show with the streets and the way that you move, right? With a little bit of fantasy whimsy to it. And the fact that she is just so cool. She's so cool. I don't know how else to describe it. I think she does a really nice job of being quirky, but not overly quirky. And then musically, it just sounds so good in your ears. I wish I had a better way to describe it. How do you feel about Adora with Magical Symphony?
I have very mixed feelings about it, to be honest. So, coming from, being hardcore ARMY, and BTS was the first K-pop group I got into. And I knew Adora as this kind of amazing mystery producer and background vocalist for BTS, where there were like 2 pictures of her that people were like, who is this amazing, brilliant young woman? And when she debuted, I followed it with great interest. I really liked it. This song it's not it for me. And I say this with the greatest of respect for the work that she put into it and how brilliantly it's done. But it's like, to my shame, I just cannot get into musical theater. And this is a very musical theater song. And further to that, it's kind of musical theater more targeted for a younger audience. So I think the Disney comparison was really apt. And I do think that IU has also gone into that direction. I know the crew talked about some IU being similar to this. It's been the sort of flavor of IU I've also liked the least, because it's just too cute for me. And I was a theater kid, but I was a theater kid who was like a self-hating theater kid. And I always hated that like musical theater, like extremely, fixed smile kind of whimsical vibe.
You're the edgy kid. You're like, why am I here? Why am I here? But I'm still here.
I was too, like, even as a child, I was like, I feel like I'm being pandered to and I don't like it. So I didn't like this, even though I voted for it to chart, because I thought it was so brilliantly done. And I mean that, like, I'm not just throwing her a bone. Like, this is brilliant. It's just not my vibe. And because I respect her so much, and also because I know that, it's always worth listening to the mini. I did listen to her mini album just to hear what the rest of it was like. And there are a few other songs that are, again, kind of similar to this sort of musical theater sound. But I'm really happy to report that there's a song there for people like me who are self-hating theater kids. It's the third song on the album. It's called CBGC. And I highly recommend that people listen to it if they don't love Magical Symphony, because it's a great song. It actually also sounds a little bit like an IU track, but it sounds more like IU's track, one of her B-sides from Lilac, Apa, the one that was, great song. It's got that kind of like jazzy, kind of funky sound to it. And what's interesting too is that I looked up the lyrics for it, and the lyrics are very similar in theme to IU song 23. So it's about this sort of sense of having this duality between your like internal presentation versus outward presentation. She has these lines like, my appearance is moderately mature, but my heart is still immature like a child. And so I think that there is like a lot of that kind of push and pull that you hear in 23 in IU's song, but she's expressing it in her own way. And it's a really good song. So I'm happy to report that I'm not an Adora hater. I love her to pieces. I just can't get with Magical Symphony. I watched the music video like 3 or 4 times, and I don't think I can do it again.
Alice, I have no way to really think about the fact that you just like said you didn't like something, but then you also celebrated the heck out of it in the best way. No, I love the way that you kind of went into the objective nature of the things that you found pleasant and well done with the song. And I think for me, I'm in a point where I just need a little bit more energy. It's the fall, guys. It's like, oh god, like the sun's gonna fall down way sooner. Set, not fall, but essentially the same thing. And I needed that little bit of kick. So this one kind of surprised me, I think, in that sense. I think I've also been listening to a lot more edgy music, so I needed the palate cleanser, and this was it for me. I will definitely be checking out the mini. One of the few minis I didn't get around to this month. And I do like the comparison with IU that you mentioned. Amazing analysis. IU recently mentioned that she'll be retiring a few songs just because now she's in her 30s and she's, leaving a few things behind, kind of going into a different phase in her life and maturing. I'm really curious and excited to kind of see Adora go in that direction, because I feel like she has that sensibility and self-awareness with her art. And the fact that, yes, like she's talking about kind of the internal struggle of being a young person and kind of discovering herself. What does that look like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, when she now matures into the person that she becomes, looks back and perhaps has to retire some ideas or a version of herself, right? Not to say that person doesn't exist. It's just, we all grow up and we all move on, and but for now we're with Adora. We'll see. Maybe she does something different. Maybe she throws you a curveball next time, Alice. Maybe a little something. All right, that was my number 2. Oh, we're here already. All right, what is your number 1 track of September 2022?
Great. Well, I'm sticking to the sort of low energy, chill, collaborative theme. This probably won't surprise you, but it is the song Sexy Nookum with Balming Tiger featuring RM. And when I was talking earlier about like this kind of style of hip hop and how, this kind of low key sound is really engineered for my tastes, I was thinking of this track. I've been casually interested in Balming Tiger for a while. And I know they describe themselves as being like an alternative K-pop group, but I think they're being a little tongue-in-cheek because they're really more of an alternative hip-hop group. And I think the music that they're making really sounds like a lot of the alternative hip-hop that's like my absolute favorite style of alternative hip-hop from the late 90s and early 2000s. So I'm in particular thinking of Handsome Boy Modeling School. I don't know if you listen to them. But for those who don't know them, it was a collaboration between Dan the Automator Nakamura and Prince Paul. And Dan the Automator is a producer who he worked with like Del the Funky Homo Sapien. He produced Cool Keith. He did a lot of production for Gorillaz. And Prince Paul produced the first 3 De La Soul albums. He produced for the RZA from Wu-Tang. He produced for Notorious B.I.G. And the two of them made a couple of albums together. And they put out in 2004 an album called White People that is just so good. And it has a lot of this kind of sound where they bring in like jazz and funk samples. They bring in a lot of featuring artists. They kind of do this like low key sound. It's a little intellectual. It's a little sexy. It's very weird. And to me, Balming Tiger is like heirs to them. Like I would not be surprised if they did not listen to Handsome Boy Modeling School or Gorillaz or some similar Cool Key, some of that kind of similar sound. The other thing it reminds me of is like Blackalicious. So I don't know if you know like the album Blazing Arrow and like Make You Feel That Way. It's kind of that similar sort of sound. And so that kind of like vibey, low key, like low energy, very like chill delivery kind of hip hop is like, that's what this is. And it's very like subliminal to me. Like it kind of insinuates itself into your brainwaves. And I feel like that's what they're showing in the music video. I don't know what's happening in this music video. It's a very weird music video. But yeah, I mean, I love it. It's a great collaboration for BTS's Kim Namjoon. You know, his style of rap is kind of traditional and old school. So I would say out of the 3 members of the BTS rap line, he's the most suited for this kind of sound. And yeah, I have to say, like, I've been listening to this song very heavily for the past month. Very heavily.
I'm going to start with the song. Well, first of all, I'm going to start by applauding you. Again, apparently this show is just now Professor Alice's class and course on detailed music history and composition and storytelling within the medium, because that was incredible. The song. All right, let's start there. I listened to the song first on Spotify through my headphones. I was like, oh, this is something. It's aggressive. It's a little jarring, but I think intentionally jarring. Stylistically, it's definitely not something that you would typically run into. The 2 main rappers of Balming Tiger, right? There's 2 of them, correct? Or is it one? Because I heard 2 voices, but I'm pretty sure it's 1. I just wanted to be sure there.
Member changes. So I know that they've had like some of the original guys in Balming Tiger left, but I don't know all the ins and outs of that. This was Omega Sapien and Mud the Students.
Got it.
Were the 2 main rappers, I think.
I think their tone is incredible. It's very intentional that it's a little bit muffled in the way they talk, but it fits the aesthetic. I love the fact that RM complements that by having a cleaner delivery with his raps to give a little bit of a contrast to the song. The beat itself is just incredibly grimy in a lot of ways, but I think the fact that you have stylistically 3 different styles of rap that go into it really give a nice air to it. At first, it was a little bit difficult to re-listen to it several times just because it was a lot to process, right? I watched the music video. I was like, oh, this makes sense now. I enjoyed it 10 times more because I am that weird, like, indie movie, experimental, existential, like 80s kid, right? This definitely takes a lot of cues from that style of filmmaking. Everything even down to the way that the filters are on it, right? It has a very grainy 80s film quality to the way that it's shot. It's got a little bit of Clockwork Orange with kind of the things that's happening. A lot of fisheye lenses, a lot of things that are being warped, unsure of what realities you're in. Has the dystopian sci-fi future where it is lived in, right? Where it's kind of a modern day society that they're in, but then there's like these weird contraptions with the 80s technology that are doing things to your brain and it's warping you in different places, all while playing so well into the song, right? I love the references that you made with all of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s rap and hip hop. I do want to shout out Del, the Funky Homo Sapien, and Hieroglyphics. Shout out to the Bay Area. Yes, those rappers are from here, everyone, and I freaking love them. I saw them at UC Irvine when I was a student there. Del, the Funky Homo Sapien. I was front. Wow. Yeah, I was at the barrier. I was rapping everything. I was probably really obnoxious, but it's totally fine. And that was an experience I will definitely that I've remembered till this day. 50 years ago now. It was incredible.
Yeah. Amazing that you lived until this moment to talk about it.
I know. And Del is a little bit older than me, apparently. So my question for you is kind of hearing the musical references to Del, the Funky Homo Sapien, Blackalicious, got some Wu-Tang in there. Thinking back to when you first heard those songs and those artists, how did that help form your identity through those formative years in your life?
Oh, what a big question. I mean, I think that the thing I liked about a lot of that music is it was a little like space age. Like at the time, it sounded so futuristic, right? Like all of that music, like there was this moment where like hip hop was getting very like space age and futuristic. Like, you know, Kool Keith put out that album, Black Elvis Lost in Space. And then you had like Outkast putting out these songs that were like both like rooted in this like political moment that we were in at that point. And I'm old enough to remember it, but also kind of futuristic and space age and Y2K and apocalyptic. And you're making me wonder, you know, maybe I am an apocalyptic personality as a result. Like maybe I'm always like hoarding food for the, you know, when the aliens invade because of listening to like Dr. Octagon. I don't know.
Yeah. I love that you pulled that aesthetic out of it, right? Because it's at that time when that music came out, we're projecting what the future is going to look like, sound like, and feel like, right? So a lot of it are tropes that are seen in like 80s and 90s music of what the future holds, right? Kind of the twangy sounds of, I forget what, the theremin, right? The theremin is very much used in a lot of media at that point. And it's very reflected in a lot of that music. Outkast is a great pull. They do a lot of like 2001 Space Odyssey type stuff. I know I just referenced 2 Kubrick movies. I am that hipster. I'm so sorry. But yeah, it does resonate. So as far as if I'm going to answer this question, it did play into my hipster sensibilities. I was definitely the underground hip hop, underground music person. Not just hip hop. I liked all like underground things, indie music. Asian music was essentially just anime music at that point. But you know, I found it. Internet was not the same. Internet was very difficult and hard to find, like all those things. It wasn't really until early 2000s that the internet was more expansive. But yeah, it very much, the way that you describe it very much like placed me kind of emotionally in that space. So yeah. Bringing it back.
And I really
go ahead.
About this too. No, I was just going to say, like, in terms of Asian identity in hip hop, because, you know, Dan the Automator is Japanese American and his parents were sent to internment camps for Japanese Americans during World War II. And then he ended up becoming a major hip hop producer and being kind of a trailblazer for Asian Americans in hip hop. And so I'm very curious. Like, I would love to take aside some of the guys in Balming Tiger and be like, hey, like, are you listening to this guy? Like, is this deliberate, or is this just you're into the sound and it's coincidental? Like, I'm really curious about that because, you know, I really see Balming Tiger as carrying a torch for how hip hop can sound in Korea, and really being experimental and new in what they're doing.
I can kind of speak to that, actually. So this is something I've thought about for a long time as far as what my identity was as an Asian person, going to college, joining hip hop clubs, and then hip hop clubs also consisting of half of Asian people, half of African American people. kind of mix of everyone else. But it's just like, why is it so much that the Asian community and Asian culture attaches and identifies with hip hop culture? And it's something that is it's not just in California. It seemed like it was very similar in other parts of the country. And kind of the sociological conclusion that I got to is that there are a lot of similarities with finding your identity in a place that doesn't belong to you, right? Tracing it all the way back to slavery. And in our case, as far as being immigrants, we come to this country as refuge to create something new for ourselves. But when those immigrants have children, which I was, and the 90s happen, then there is a disconnect with the expectations of your family heritage, culture, and kind of the values of what a collectivist society looks like, right? And now you come into the United States, everyone's individualistic, everyone builds their own wealth and success, but that's not what you grow up on. So now you no longer have a community, a village, a home base. So what do? You rebel. Everyone rebels at that age, right? You rebel between the ages of 13 and 23, 25, right? And at that point, hip hop was very much the counterculture. Say what we will about the political climate at that time, but there was legitimately politicians telling people to ban hip hop music and explicit language and put these guys in jail. And of course, rebelling as an Asian person, I wanted that. My community wanted that. We all wanted that. And then incidentally, we found the art in things because we were also kind of taught to follow the details. And say what you will about Asian families and making me do math and paying attention to all the academics. But then I kind of translated that into how do I look further into the things that I'm consuming? And that's the hip hop music. So yeah, this really did turn into Professor Alice's office hours. I hope I got an A. I hope my short answer was really good for your course. Well,
I'm still trying to get a good grade myself. So
you are the one distributing the grades and grading all the tests and papers. So you are doing excellent. Swinging this.
There's no professor for this class.
A student run. Perfect. I hope we get credits. I'll double check with Warren. Maybe he'll sign off on it. Swinging it back to Bombing Tiger and RM. So RM has talked about kind of learning culture, learning how to speak English, through friends, through other outlets and the media. Him being able to express himself here is kind of remarkable, right? Because it just feels so seamless. In your interpretation, how do you feel like this is more of an extension of his artistic expression? And to me, it feels like he's been doing this his entire life and he's always wanted to do this kind of music. What are the foundational pieces that you've seen RM express in the past between rap, music, creating music that line up with this song? Because this song is not something that just a random person finds, right? And kind of what are the highlights to you in the way that RM was able to compose the lyrics and then deliver them in such a very provocative way? I mean, this music video is not easy to watch either.
I mean, it reminds me of Deng, the classic BTS SoundCloud release for Muster that like every army wishes would be released on Spotify, because it's a diss track and it's a really interesting one to listen to because each of the BTS rap line has a very specific type of flow that they do. And RM is just so chill and deliberate in how he like lays out his disses in Deng. It's almost like the pace slows and people hush to listen to him. And I kind of get, it's a very similar vibe, if not exactly the same flow. And I'm not technical about hip hop, so I don't really know all of the different, beats and flow and production issues, but the feeling is very similar, and it's this very like cool, detached diss. And it's like the dissiest diss of them all. When it's like, he's not even bothered to be angry. He's just, he's just laying out facts. But I think maybe to the other part of your question, it's exciting for me as ARMY to see him doing this kind of collaboration, because I think that BTS in this phase of their careers is being increasingly liberated to collaborate with other artists and with other Korean artists. I feel like for a very long time in their careers, they were doing a lot of collaborations with Western artists. And seeing him working with Balming Tiger is exciting for me, because I think there have been rumors that he's going to be putting out the next solo album of the BTS members. And I am really crossing my fingers that Balming Tiger is part of it, because I think that there's a really good mesh between their sounds and their styles of work.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to RM and kind of going in that direction. I think J-Hope definitely set the expectation now of kind of the public, right? Me being a very just public-facing K-pop fan, when Arson came out, I was like, "We're doing this? All right, cool, I'm in." And now with RM, he definitely has the capacity to do it. And this song right here is a nice beta test of it, if you want to call it that, for all of the app developers out there. Yes, Warren, hi. All right, let's get into the last song, my song, number one song. I specifically strategized this to get to the last song, so here we are with my number one track for September 2022 is BB with Animal Farm. Shout out to George Orwell and the 1984 allegory of the Russian Revolution. Well, I have a lot to say about BB. I'm really trying to like hold it down. So let's start with this. Big fan. I like her raspy tone and the fact that she's playing into that character in a lot of her music. Definitely pushing the limits of cultural sensibility and expectation, but is being accepted in a lot of ways, right? Where it's like, oh, it's Korea, it's a little bit more conservative as far as what you're able to say and do, agency for your body kind of thing. BB kind of doesn't care. She's like, I'm here, I'm gonna do everything, and now she's able to kind of express herself in this incredibly artistic, cinematic music video and song itself, right? Shout out to the crew for nailing a lot of the references and giving a starting point for kind of describing this song, right? Anita pointing out that James Bond definitely feels like it's here, right? With the Adele song for Skyfall. And then in the credits itself, Warren pointed out that Kill Bill by Tarantino is in the credits. And then Doug with the action and choreography and the placement of the blade. Like that small detail right there, I think tells you that BB and the creative team at Feel Good Music really want to create, really have attention to detail with what they want to do for BB, because they know that she's very popular. They know that they want her art to be representative of, more refinement, right? The song itself, I try to listen to it in my headphones. It makes me want to just watch a movie of BB. For better or worse, right? For better in the sense that I feel like it's really well executed. For worse in that, like, I have to stop everything I'm doing. It's not something I can just like have on passively and just like, I don't know, like drive my car or just like open emails and like clear my inbox. Like, no, I gotta like pay attention now. And then it makes me want to open the music video to watch everything play out. And everything plays out so dramatically. In a way that is in line with what I know of BB as far as the theatrics that she plays into in a lot of things that she's produced and made. But now to kind of raise the artistic expression to the symbol of what Animal Farm has represented as far as literature and history, and then kind of spinning that into what that means for her in this setting, in this situation, and perhaps even a broader sense of what it means to be a woman in society, right? Generally speaking, right? Not necessarily Korean society or US society, but what it means to kind of be in a room full of men and then taking control for yourself. Alice, I feel like you got a lot to say. What do you got for BB and Animal Farm?
Well, you've given me so much to spin off on. You've said a lot of things that I have similar thoughts about with BB. the incredible, meticulous production of the music video, the theatricality. I mean, she's established herself as being an amazing action actress, if nothing else. But there's a lot more, right? So like her singing is great. I like her vocal tones a lot, and I always have. But the themes and what you were saying about like being a woman in society, you know, I'm wondering how far she can take this, because Casino as well, and to another degree, Life as a Bee, both are songs in which, and certainly this new one, Animal Farm, in which she's kind of calling out the commodification of women and women's bodies, and sort of setting herself up as being like a goddess of vengeance against this type of exploitation. But, you know, I wonder, is she, knowing how difficult it is to really call out these types of exploitation as they happen in daily life? It's one thing to do an action movie like this one, or do Casino, where there's these very obvious, egregious offenses being committed, and she's like swinging swords and like, you know, playing cards and doing all this other stuff. But as in Casino. But what about, you know, the more sort of daily sexism that women face in Korean society? Like, is she going to be able to make songs about that? Like, and I don't know, like how. Because she's not a traditional K-pop singer, right? So, you know, I know that K-pop singers, women, get a lot of backlash if they're seen as being even remotely feminist. And BB is in a very different type of company with different types of artists who are also have American roots and have maybe different ethics around speaking out against sexism or speaking out as an artist. And so she's a lot more freedom with that. And I'm really curious to know like what she's going to, you know, how she's going to call things out and what she's going to continue doing, because this is very stylized. And I think it really suits her very well. But I guess I'm just curious to know what she's going to do next.
I want to stay on the stylistic choices that PP has as an artist in whole, not just with Animal Farm. And the fact that you said this is a very stylized presence, production, presentation of this message, right? And I guess if I'm trying to answer the question that you did not pose to me, but I will try to answer it, I do feel like there's a subtlety in the way that she incorporates a lot of these messages, right? With Animal Farm, I don't think that's the message that you and I interpreted out of it. I feel like is very much there only if you're looking for it, right? If you're the kind of person who understands kind of the literature, the history of what Animal Farm means, right? And then also the fact that the visual symbolism of the music video very much shows that she is at the center of this story. But what are the challenges that a woman has to face in a room full of men, right? And we picked up on that. I don't know if that's something that the general audience picked up on. I think they see a lot of the references that are far more explicit, Kill Bill being one of them. Even the guitar itself, I feel like is symbolic of freeing yourself into music, not necessarily kind of the feminist ideals that you and I pulled out of it. But I think that they're there, right? So I guess my guess as to what would happen next as far as her tackling different subject matter, things that are a lot more difficult to talk about in Korea, is that it's going to be subtle. She's going to slip it in there for you and I, you and me, the nerds, to parse through, and it's going to be there because it's intentional. But I think there are going to be a lot of layers to it where it's going to be accessible and easy to digest for other people. That's just a guess, but I feel like she's done a really nice job of balancing that. And I feel like Animal Farm does a great job of being the current representation of kind of BB and all of her messaging, right? Because if you really just like watch this music video without music, oh my God, it's beautiful. Oh my God, it's like, I want this movie now. Yeah, it's all like really cool stuff. I mean, she cuts off a guy's head like within like a minute, and it's like, oh, okay, we're doing this. And then as a person who may not be thinking about the deeper implications of society and women. That just looks really cool. And it's like, you got a badass chick doing really cool stuff. Even if you're from a male perspective or female perspective, it just looks cool. So, yeah, I think BB sets us up for an album that could potentially be covering a lot of those messages, but in a very subtle, perhaps even hidden way that is also very intentional.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you picked this song because I think I really agree with one thing that came up in the podcast. It was my feeling about this too, which is that this is doing an incredible job of hyping me up for her eventual album. If this is the pre-release, she is kind of, she's really putting down her cards on the table to go back to the casino and, stating her intention. And it's super bold, and there are clearly a lot of resources behind what she's doing and a lot of people who believe in her artistic vision and her talent. And again, really exciting to see what she's doing with it.
Yeah, BB killing it, Feel Good Music killing it. 88 Rising, shout out to you guys for bringing them to the States twice. Once last year for, those are separated by a year. Yeah, both Head in the Clouds. BB was a part of here in LA. So yeah, man, just it's good to see. It's good that she's getting that exposure, and she's picking up a lot of steam here in the United States as well, as far as what I can see. And the people at 88 Rising's show that didn't really know her, but were able to relate and connect because it wasn't just like your typical K-pop music. Not that there's anything bad with that. It's just it was more familiar to them, right? So BB, I think you'll do great here too. So let's get something for you over here. All right, that is our list. Alice, would you like to recap your top 3 of September?
So my top 3 of September were BO featuring Zico, Complex, Crush featuring J-Hope, Rush Hour, and Balming Tiger featuring RM, Sexy Nukem. So September has been all about collaborations and features.
Yeah, we did go a little off the main show, but you know what? I feel like all these songs kind of flow together and fit really nicely. Great choices. My 3 songs are EXID with Fire, Adora with Musical Symphony, and BB with Animal Farm. All the ladies, so that's cool. I'm always here for it. We're going to quickly look at the chart for September. It was kind of funky. Anything stand out to you this month? Yesterday, Crush and J-Hope were retired. They made it. They got through, and they got the Hall of Spice with 3 crowns, getting the double crown this week. Sad to say, Rocket Punch didn't make it through. So sad, Warren. But anything else stand out for you as far as trends that you notice as far as the voting patterns between the Gochu Gang, main show, or just surprises?
I mean, not so much. I do think, I feel bad about Rocket Punch. I will say I think Chiquita was like, that's the song that should have gotten Hall of Spice. But it's so quirky what songs chart because it's really about who else is around in that particular month and what the competition is. And to me, it doesn't necessarily reflect on the quality of a song so much as the environment in which it came out. And I think, again, like the charts in September were a little complicated by having a bit of a backlog of some incredible August releases to work with. So, it was a little bit of a summer hangover. But, really, really solid songs being discussed.
Definitely a summer hangover. I'm still hungover. It's fall now. I'm still listening to Twice. I'm still listening to IVE. Where are we? I have no sense of time. I'm still listening to Kepler. Up is great, man. But yeah, it's been we've got a good run of just great music, right? And I think now we're going into a season where artists are wrapping up for the year as far as their releases, and trying to get those songs in for um, award season consideration, while then also now going into the Christmas songs and ballads for the winter. So here we are. We're gonna do. We're here. We're gonna get into it. So yeah. Quick note: I talked to Warren right before the show, and he gave a top 3 of his songs for September. Special request by Alice. So shout out to you. In reverse order.
Thank you.
Warren's number 3 song is Two Baddies, One Porsche, NCT 127.
Amazing.
You guys want to talk to him about it? Feel free. I will not elaborate. I will let you ask him yourselves. And then number 2, we got BB with Animal Farm. And number 1, we got Crush featuring J-Hope with Rush Hour. I feel pretty similar about everything. Maybe we should have talked about Two Baddies. I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, that's all the music we've got for this month. Thanks to Alice for kicking it and doing all the things, because I do really like kind of looking back and recapping my thoughts of how things played out. And Alice killed it as far as the detail and description and the the study, the academic nature of the way you talked about things. So thanks to you.
No. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was a good month. I feel like August was a blockbuster. We knew October is going to be jam-packed. September was more chill, but I think that between the two of us, we've shown that there is always really good music to be found. So yeah, glad I had a chance to talk about it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into our closing thoughts for today. Keeping it chill, keeping it light. We do a little life catch up and just see how you're doing. So how is life, Alice, since last we spoke? The last episode you were on was the draft, which went incredibly well. I think we're going to do another one at some point throughout the year. That's why I did make it a part 1 to really cover the entire breadth of 2022. But yeah, no, it's been a minute. So how's life, and how you doing? How you holding up as the seasons shift?
Good. I'm a big September fan. September is one of those sort of like transitional months that I really enjoy, because you get like a few like bonus weeks of summer, but without like the summer hype. Like, there's not that kind of intensity. It's just like, nah, it's still summer. And then you get the start of fall. And, it's been pretty relaxed. And, I've just been catching up with family and friends. How about you?
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you've enjoyed September. Really interesting that that's your favorite month. I will know that ahead of time for next year. I have no idea the sense of time or anything, to be honest. This past month was a blur. I think I went to some concerts. I don't remember anymore. I do. I went to Joji at the start of the month, and I saw Nicki twice. I saw Nicki in San Francisco and then in Santa Cruz. And then after that, I just really don't know what really happened. Some kind of serious, well, I wouldn't say serious, but things that I am happy to divulge, and I hope encourages other people to be more open and transparent and willing to talk about it. So I think I mentioned this in the past episode several months ago. I regularly have therapy. So I am seeing my therapist, and it has been, I want to say like 5 months now of seeing them regularly. I have sessions with them twice a month, and it's been going great. Shout out to telehealth and doing things over a Zoom call. But also you have to really find the agency that works for you. I did go through a number of agencies before I found the one that was responsive and had a great system, and I was able to kind of see and pick out the therapist that worked for me. So yeah, definitely it's a trial and error process, but if you have access to it, if you have insurance that covers it, please take advantage of it. I mean, for the most part, we should all be going to the doctor for our yearly checkup and going to the dentist every 6 months. So add therapy to part of that routine and process for you, because honestly, it is life-changing. You don't have to have a dysfunction or anything air quotes wrong with you to go to therapy. Think of it as, you get your car tuned up, get yourself emotionally tuned up here and there. So I think it's been a great experience. And then I have seen a psychiatrist with the same agency just to kind of talk through medications and kind of things to look forward, things to kind of plan ahead of time. Yeah, I think that is also incredibly valuable. I will say it is beneficial and probably encouraged if you are going to see a psychiatrist to also be seeing a therapist. So the difference, for those that don't know, a therapist is a counselor, a person that talks you through things that are going on inside of you, right? Emotionally, intellectually, things that are happening in life, help you process those things, make sense of those things, and then kind of give you a clinical perspective of how to approach resolution. A psychiatrist is a trained doctor. They are a physician that can prescribe medication. So they do have an idea of your neurochemistry and how the brain works, and are adjacent to what a therapist can provide, but their primary objective is to treat you medically with medications. I say this because some people will only seek a psychiatrist, or you actually kind of need to work on the things you can work on first through therapy. So have them in parallel. Again, if you have the resources available to you, it is definitely something to include in your life if you are a person who just needs the help. And I think we all could use the help. I definitely do, and life has been pretty good because of it. So yeah, that's been my life.
Well, you're totally right about all of that. Is that it is really just like having maintenance of mental health is like maintenance of physical health. Like you don't need to wait for there to be a problem to check in. But I would say that people who may not know if their insurance covers certain services, there are frequently nonprofit services, and I don't know all about that, but I know that there are, in different states, there's different helplines and things like that that can refer you to nonprofit or, low fee services. So don't let a fear of not being able to pay keep you away from, seeking out resources.
I'm so glad you said that. Yes, that was the biggest hurdle for me for the majority of my life. One, always thinking that it was going to be super expensive, even though I was insured. And then two, if insurance wasn't covering it, like how do I find services? How do I find resources? And it turns out there are a ton, like you said, that are free to low cost, that are accessible and work out. So yeah, there are options if you are living in the United States. If you're international, a little bit different, depending on the healthcare system in your country. But yeah, we can definitely at least you and I can be emotionally supportive to anyone who has questions. So we will be there. I bring all of this up because with the shift in seasonal affective disorder is a thing. It happens. That is shortened with the acronym SAD. It's very fitting, right? But that is the seasonal affective depression that affects people when there is just less sunlight, and being indoors more often does induce a version of depression, whether that's a cumulative effect from another depression that you are experiencing, or this is the only time of the year that it's triggered. It's very tough for a lot of people. I know certain states showed the numbers of when things are most affected. So I will say, if you can, get ahead of it in the most optimistic and positive and way that works best for you, right? I don't ever want to force anyone to go to therapy, but I will just say people will support you. People do understand, and it is not common knowledge, but it is far more understandable than you think that people will see the changing seasons and be like, oh, okay, we understand. Get the help you need. So yeah, that's kind of why I bring it up. Alice, anything to add? I know I kind of sprung that on you, but any experiences that you have with regards to just any of this?
I mean, look, I'm a winter baby, and I love winter time, and I love dark and cold weather, but I know not everybody does. And I would also add that in addition to decreased sunlight for those of us living in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a difficult time of the year for a lot of people because it's they start seeing family or not seeing family, and they have all of these sort of end of the year holidays and end of the year sort of stock taking. And it's very easy to start thinking about like what you have or haven't accomplished. And, I just always want to encourage people to just like, especially younger people, because I say this as another, like, I mean, if you're 90, I'm like 130.
Please.
But like, I see people who are like younger being so hard on themselves and getting so stressed out over not feeling like they're accomplishing what they want to be accomplishing. And, like, you have to take things at your own pace, and you have to just be kind to yourself and be kind to people around you, because like everybody's like dealing with struggles. And and like you said, I can't agree more. Like, it's always useful to check in with other people and, get help. And it doesn't imply anything about, who you are, except that you're being responsible and taking care of yourself. And so I think that's always something to be celebrated.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, great note to end on, Alice. Alice, thank you again for just being here and gracing the show with your presence, your intellect, and your thoughtfulness in all respects of life and living, whether it's between music, art, literature, or taking care of yourself. I think you are an extraordinary person who has a great perspective, and I'm always so appreciative just to talk to you. So thank you again for just being here.
Oh, no, I mean, totally like mutual admiration society here. You are doing a great service to the community by hosting this podcast. And it's always fun to check in with you.
Yeah. Well, we'll do it again real soon. I love having you on. So we'll get that scheduled. I'm trying to do better about being responsible and all this stuff. So yeah, thanks again. Let's sign out. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the SojuTalk Nation podcast, episode 52. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and continue the conversation on the SojuTalk Kpop Podcast Discord. This has been the SojuTalk Nation for Alice. This is Crispy. Bye.